Hello, everybody. It's Eric Virathaler of Virathaler Studios here once again, here for the next episode of Sit Down by the Fire. I'm here with my next special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Bob Azier, and I'm a huge Bela Lugosi fan and Dracula fan. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. Of course, anytime. So, uh, so I guess my first question is, what exactly made you a fan like of Bela Lugosi and Dracula? And you even seem like to be like a horror movie fan in general. And so I guess my question is, what got you into all that?
Honestly, it was going to the local video store. Every other weekend, my mom would take me to the local video store, and they had the whole Universal Monster set section. And like Dracula was like always my favorite. I had I was already familiar with the characters because like my grandpa used to decorate big for Halloween, so
Right.
I was definitely already aware of Dracula, and and uh, and when I saw the movie, like I couldn't believe how good it was. Like I remember that scene when Bela Lugosi comes down on the stairs. I
Mhm.
started jumping up and down, saying, "This is the real Dracula! This is the real Dracula!"
Yeah, that's amazing.
Uh,
So yeah, I guess that shows like just what generation we are, and I mean, considering that, considering you just even saying the words "go into the video store."
all right, yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, and so thank you for answering that. So what exactly about Dracula made that one your favorite out of all of them?
um, I loved how he was so confident. He was such. It was a really bizarre. I was always the weird kid, and Dracula's a weird kid too. But he's always like confident about it. And I love so I just I loved his style. And he always to me he always seemed like the scariest one.
Makes sense, yeah, yeah, definitely. And so with that in mind, back when you were a kid, um, did you back when you were a kid, like, do you remember seeing any like Dracula like or horror movies back when you were a kid at the movie
I
theater at all? Yeah, like for me, what introduced me to the Universal monsters? It was back when Van Helsing first came out, and back when Van Helsing came out, I remember was when Universal released like these tie-in DVDs of like the Legacy collection of Frankenstein, Dracula, and all that. And then that was how I was first introduced. And so yeah, I'm just curious. So yeah, I guess I'm just curious, like to hear if you like saw Van Helsing in theaters, or if you saw Dracula 2000 in theaters, or any films
I
like that.
actually I actually saw Dracula Dead and Loving It in theaters.
Nice.
Yeah. And I saw that. I actually saw it before I saw the Bela Lugosi version. And I remember I just really loved it. Like I loved how it like the outfit. I loved the Dracula Renfield dynamic.
Uh-huh, yeah, and I also love like how they made fun of that wig, well, like that Gary Oldman wore, like in that version, because yeah, a lot of people definitely love to poke fun at that wig that he wore.
Uh,
So yeah, and I actually rewatched that movie last night, my
uh,
first time watching it in years, and yeah, I could see why people would poke fun at that wig, and yeah, and so but yeah, well, I guess that's good to know you saw Dead of Loving It in theaters. Did you see any of the other Dracula? Well, the more recent one in theaters, like yeah, like Van Helsing and all that.
yes, I did. I like usually whenever big horror movie comes out, I go see it. So I saw Van Helsing in theaters. I just saw Last Voyage of the Demeter in theaters when it came out. I saw the Renfield movie in theaters,
Hmm.
and I can't wait for the Nosferatu remake.
Oh, same as well. And I mean, considering that I was a big fan of the 1970s remake. I was a fan of that one. But
Me
yeah,
too.
and I mean, I never expected we were going to get a second remake. But yeah, and I'm especially excited like to see Bill Skarsgård like as Count Orlok. I mean, it's definitely very good casting, and it's also, excuse me, it's also interesting how they got Willem Dafoe in it, considering like that he actually was in Shadow of the Vampire.
Right? Wouldn't that be cool? Because I get the impression from the trailer that he's like the Van Helsing type role.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that's so neat that he's both like he's like both played like a kind of Dracula and a Van Helsing.
Right. But yeah, the Dracula movies I saw in theaters, I saw Dracula Untold. That one's not really a horror movie at all. I mean, it's more of like a fantasy action movie. But to be fair, I can see why that they did that. It's because they wanted to appeal like to like a broader audience, and at that time, superhero movies like were extremely popular, so it made sense that they wanted to turn Dracula into a superhero. And yeah, and hardcore horror fans would take issue with that, but it's just them trying to keep up with the times. I saw Renfield in theaters as well. I also saw Last Voyage of the Demeter in theaters. I saw Van Helsing in theaters, and I can't believe Van Helsing like was 20 years ago now.
My
That
gosh.
makes me feel old. Yeah, and
You'll
I
feel as old as Dracula. All right.
yeah yeah definitely never thought of it that way. But yeah, and I think that those are the only Dracula movies I've seen in theaters. But yeah, and I mean, as far as theaters goes, I mean, Dracula Untold like was the first one that we got like that was released to theaters in like the longest time. From what I heard, it originally was going to be Sam Worthington, like who was going to play the Count. And but yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I really enjoyed it. Like, I thought, I thought it was like really well made, and like even though it was like more like adventure, I feel like Dracula is such a great character that you could like interpret it different ways.
Right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, considering that the character Dracula is already in the public domain, and so therefore people can do whatever they want, like with the character, as long as it doesn't infringe on anyone else's copyright of it.
Right, exactly. So it's like free to interpret.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And matter of fact, I believe that Dracula, he's the character that like that's had the most movie adaptations, like out of any character. Like I forget last time I believe I checked, it was like nearly 200. I don't know how accurate that is, but regardless, though, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, especially considering its public domain status. And with that in mind, the original Lugosi movie goes public domain in 2027.
I know. Wouldn't that be fascinating? Like, what happens?
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I mean, I feel like that will make it easier for people to see. Because I forgot to mention in the opening, but I run a Lugosi Theater TikTok, a TikTok channel and a YouTube channel called
Uh
Lugosi
huh.
Theater, and a lot of like people on TikTok, they'll ask me like, where can I see it? And like sometimes I just don't know, you know. So like I feel like that's gonna help it like be more accessible for like new fans.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, especially considering that a lot of people nowadays, sad to say, a lot of people don't buy DVDs anymore. A lot of people like will just use HBO Max,
Right.
Peacock,
Yeah.
Tubi, and all that. And Universal only puts it on Peacock during around Halloween time. Which, look, I get it; it's a horror movie, but yet Peacock has other horror movies throughout the entire year. So it's like, okay, so why is it okay to have all these other horror movies on Peacock, but yet only the Universal monster movies are only during the fall? So yeah, it has made it a lot harder to get access to the movie. I mean, I have seen like the whole Legacy collection at Walmart, so there was that. But yeah, it has made it harder for people to see it. But yeah, once it goes public domain though, and I mean anybody can print DVDs of it, anybody can put it on Tubi or whichever else. But yeah, but it is important to note that while the movie will go public domain, but it's the likeness of Bela Lugosi, like that's owned by the Lugosi family.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and so the reason why that I know that is because I actually did have Lynn Lugosi on, like who actually is the CEO of Lugosi Enterprises, and so
And I watched it. Your interview with her is amazing too.
thank you so much. I certainly greatly do appreciate that. But yeah, Lynn's definitely a very, very busy person, considering that I first reached out to her like early last year, and then I didn't get her on until the fall of last year. But hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Right, exactly. Because I saw you both your interview with her and Sarah Karloff, and they were both amazing.
Thank you so much. I certainly greatly do appreciate that. But yeah, and so yeah, and so yeah, so you mentioned your TikTok and YouTube. What actually inspired you, like, to begin having a YouTube channel?
Honestly, just like to talk about like Dracula and classic horror, and just kind of to share what I love with other people. And it gave me and it sort of gave me a way to like interact with it. Because I loved it so much. But I mean, it's great to sit down and watch it. But I wanted to be able to create something with it, with my passion. So it really just like how much I love Dracula is what inspired me to create the YouTube and the TikTok channel.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, and I can imagine that you've had people actually think that your last name is Lugosi. I mean, since
Yeah.
that's your Facebook name, it's your YouTube name, and so I'm pretty sure that you've had to clarify to people. And now, look, it'd be great if I actually was related to the Lugosis, but I'm not.
Yeah, close but no cigar.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And so,
Because I just started because I just did it on Facebook originally. Just it was before before my YouTube channel and TikTok had really taken off that much. So I just kind of did it because I thought it'd sound cool. Like I never realized it like what it would lead to.
right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, that's been a huge blessing, like about the internet. It's become a lot easier, like to meet all these like-minded people.
Right, yeah, it has. Yeah. Now I did specifically name the TikTok channel and YouTube channel after Lugosi, after Bela Lugosi, just because he's like my inspiration. So I was like when I came up with the name, I was thinking like how it like on Broadway, how they have the like the Hammerstein Theater and the Richard Rodgers Theater, like that kind of stuff.
Right, makes sense. Yeah, and yeah, and I have watched your videos, and yeah, and you definitely do a really good impression of the Lugosi voice. I mean,
Thank you so much.
considering that I have tried it, it's not that easy.
It's taken a lot of practice.
I can imagine, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised like if you did like what Martin Landau did, like just watching his movies, really really studying his voice and his vowels and
Honestly, yeah, just kind of watching it over and over again, like listening to like different pronunciations, and I can't get it. It's so hard to get it exact, so I just try to like get it close, and then make sure I'm in character, and that I feel like that kind of carries it the rest of the way.
yeah, and I heard that that's what Martin Landau did. Like I heard that he watched Bela Lugosi meets a Brooklyn gorilla over and over again just for that. And yeah, Martin was really direct. He was like, "That's one of the worst movies I've ever seen," and yeah, and considering that he watched it over and over again simply just for his role
Right? Yeah.
as Lugosi, I'm like, "Oh man, that is some dedication." Like to watch. I mean, considering that I watched that movie a while ago, and yeah, and I mean, Lugosi is great in it, but everything else was just kind of forgettable.
Well, I mean, even like nothing against people who like that movie, but it's hard to watch a movie that you don't really like over and over again, no matter what it is.
Yeah, it is. And so yeah, so considering Martin Landau did all that, shows his dedication. And yeah, Martin Landau, even though he didn't look anything like Lugosi, but just with the makeup he wore and just his performance in that movie was incredible. And I'm really glad by the fact that he won the Oscar for it. And I believe he was the first actor like to ever win an Oscar playing another actor.
Wow. And it was well deserved. He's amazing in it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, I actually was just about to ask you if you've seen the Ed Wood movie, but I kind of figure that you have.
Yes, I love it. And like he just like man, it's just like he captures like the Bela Lugosi atmosphere, you know, like the theatricality and everything.
Yeah, like the way how he did like the gesture,
Mhm.
the voice, I mean everything. Like it felt like in a way like as if Bela Lugosi actually was resurrected.
Right? Yeah, I remember I was watching an interview with Dolores Fuller, and she said something like that. She said like when he was like doing Glen or Glenda, it was like Bela was there.
Wow. That is
And like I mean, coming from her, that's pretty big, you know.
oh definitely yeah. And I mean but yeah, and I mean considering that yeah, and I mean considering that Dolores actually got to meet Lugosi since that, because of her connections to Ed Wood. So yeah, so with that in mind, I'm assuming that you have seen the actual Ed Wood movies like Bride of the Monster, Glenda, or Plan 9.
Oh yes, I have. As a matter, I hope you don't mind me doing a little plug. I was I'm one of the contributing authors in the Ed Wood anthology book. It's called
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's called Ed Wood's Warm and Gora Wishes and Rubber Octopus Dreams.
Oh, awesome, man.
Yeah.
When is that coming out?
It's actually out already.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
definitely will have
It's
to check
it's really
that
cool.
out.
I'm like honored to be involved. Like, do you know the horror historian Gregory Mink? He's in that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I mean,
Yeah.
I can imagine that you felt very, very honored.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I couldn't believe they asked me. It's like amazing to be in the same because I mean I grew up watching him in like the interviews for the Universal Monster documentaries and everything. So like, it's amazing to be included in that.
That's amazing, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But yeah, I mean, I definitely will have to be sure to. But yeah, I definitely will be have to sure to check that out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, was that the first time that you were ever asked to be a part of something like that?
Yeah, that was the first time. Like I have a friend who's an author, Christopher Gauthier, and like he introduced me to like to the publish to the like the guy in charge, Brad Braddock, about it, and yeah, it was just like amazing to be included. Like when like, and you see all like all the creative people involved, like I couldn't believe it.
That's amazing, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, uh, yeah, yeah, of course. But yeah, and I mean, considering that, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely an event that you will never ever for. That's
Right.
an event that you definitely are never gonna forget about.
Right, yeah, because it's so cool. Because it's like my, and like he put my name on it. Cool too. He just did it, but he put Bobby Lugosi in quotation marks Zier.
That is amazing.
Right, yeah, I'm so excited about it because like they used to advertise Bela Lugosi as Bela Dracula Lugosi, so it's like in the same style.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So, obviously, Lugosi's your favorite Dracula, but what are your thoughts on all of the other actors like who play Dracula, like Christopher Lee, Gary Oldman, and Luke Evans, and all these
My
other people?
I think my second favorite is Gary Oldman, and I kind of like as different as he is from Bela Lugosi. I see a lot of Bela Lugosi in him.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, considering that I just rewatched it last night. Yeah, but yeah, I could see hints of Lugosi in there with his voice, but yeah, he
In
definitely made it
the oh
his
the
own.
like in the evil smile.
Uh-huh. And there even was that point in the movie where he even said the famous line, "I never drink wine."
Right, yeah. I love the way he does it. Like he doesn't imitate Bela Lugosi. He does it his own way, but he does it like great, like in his own way. And then
Yeah.
I also love Christopher Lee's amazing. Like like how ferocious he is. I know he's technically kind of Orlok, but Max Shrek is so creepy in Nosferatu.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I even was creeped out even by Dracula, like in the Nosferatu remake. Not the one coming out now, but the one from the 70s,
Mhm.
especially with his voice and just his mannerisms. It's like I didn't want to be around that guy. And so,
Right.
yeah, and I mean, a lot of people say that the 20s version is better, which look, I get it. It's the original and it set the temple for horror movies. But I also really even like the 1970s version. So
It's
yeah,
really good.
so I guess in your own opinion, which version do you like better, the 1922 version or the 1970s one?
I feel like the 1920s one is scarier, so I like that one better. But like I really like what they did with the 1970s one. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
thought it was like how it was. Oh, it was like almost like the opposite of what you would think. Whereas like the 1920s, like Count Orlok was real like monstrous and like kind of a figure of nightmares. I like how he was like in the 1970s one. He was like really fleshed out and like he had like a really fully developed like character.
Oh yeah, definitely. And what I even love about the 70s version is how that they kind of tweak the ending, like about how what's her face kills Dracula at the very end. Like how at the end of the 70s version, like when Dracula lifts his head up, but then like she pulls him back down, like so in that way that he could continue to suck her blood, but she was doing that like as bait.
Right? Yeah.
I'm like, I absolutely loved how they changed that. And people often will say, "Oh, old movies don't attract crowds anymore." But two 2 years ago was the 100th anniversary of Nosferatu, and there actually was a showing of it in my theater. And yeah, and the theater was packed. I mean, considering that a movie that's 100 years old still attracts a crowd.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've actually seen Dracula and the Bela Lugosi one in theaters 3 different times.
Oh, that must have been amazing.
Oh my god, it was. It was the first time it was a special showing, and they were showing like all the Universal monster movies. This was a while ago, but Bela Lugosi Jr. was there. Sarah Karloff, Boris Karloff's daughter, was there, and then Lon Chaney Jr.'s grandson was there.
That's amazing. And
Yeah,
so yeah, so I'm assuming that you actually got to meet him and all that.
yeah, I did. Oh, they were so all of them were so nice.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. But yeah, I mean, considering that I've talked to Sarah Karloff, and yeah, she's nice, and yeah, Bela Lugosi Jr. I tried to get him on my podcast, but unfortunately that didn't work out, and so then that's why that it was Lynn instead. But hey, and I mean, I was honored either way.
Oh my god, I mean that's huge.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And so yeah, so there's the version of Dracula with Lugosi with music. There is a version like that's done by Philip Glass, and there's of course like the regular version, if you want to call that. So I guess out of the two versions, I'm assuming that you've seen the one with music.
Mm.
Uh, which one do you personally? Which one would you rather watch? The one with the score or without?
I think I like it better without. I feel like I feel like it's creepier, especially because like I'm so, it feels like modern movies are so like alive with so many different sounds going on, whereas like this like that like kind of like dead silence to me it feels like more otherworldly.
Yeah, and I mean, considering that you don't have any of these sound cues, you don't have any of these
Right.
music cues of how you're supposed to feel, and so and therefore it makes you feel more at ease. And
Yeah.
yeah, according to my research, the reason for that it was because like that it helped to cut down costs of like having to pay a composer and all that. But inadvertently, that actually helped.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, you like think of the phrases like "quiet as a tomb."
Hmm. Which I think kind of parallels now, like with like a Quiet Place, considering that those movies, I mean, with their title and concept, there's not a whole lot of sound, there's not a whole lot of music. So I kind of feel like that the Quiet Place movies kind of are like the new silent movies in a way.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. That's a really great observation. I agree.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I guess with that in mind, what are your thoughts on the like, the more modern day horror films?
I really enjoy them too. Like I said, I can't wait to see the new Nosferatu movie, and like it really, I saw Abigail, and I really enjoyed that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I totally forgot to mention that I saw that too in theaters, and yeah, and,
cool.
yeah. Thanks for reminding me because yeah, I completely forgot that I saw that, and I can't believe that I forgot about that. But yeah, it was supposed to be called Dracula's Daughter,
Uh,
but they changed the name to Abigail. And yeah, and, at the end, they certainly did hint at it, like that her dad is Count Dracula, but they don't outright say it. It's more hinted at, like when he goes, "Oh, I go by many names," which
right,
and then hints like that Dracula is one of his names.
right, yeah, exactly. Because he goes by Count Dracula, Baron Latos, Doctor Lejos, Count Alucard.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah,
I loved how they used Swan Lake as her theme song.
yeah. Which then I thought was like the perfect callback.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Because because it was like it went beyond homage. It was like it became part of like the new ambiance. Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoy the modern horror movies, but it's like the old ones are my favorite.
Yeah, and I mean,
Those are the ones I love.
yeah, I mean, considering if it wasn't for the oldies, we wouldn't have like all of what we have now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, unfortunately, Renfield and the Last Voyage of the Demeter. I don't know how Abigail did at the box office, but yeah, those two movies didn't do very well at the box office. Why do you think that those? Why do you feel like that those movies didn't do that very well?
Well, I mean, I do think it would have been better to maybe release them like around Halloween.
Yeah,
Like like I don't know. I feel like they didn't like sort of like embrace like the theme like as much as they could. Release it on Halloween, treat it like a big deal.
yeah, and I mean, considering that Lynn told me like that the fact that she's the most busy at around the Halloween time
Right? Yeah.
makes sense. I mean, since that Dracula is a Halloween icon,
Right.
and
Yeah.
Renfield was released shortly around the time of the Super Mario Brothers movie came out, so therefore they had a lot of competition and they just couldn't compete with.
Mm.
So yeah, and from my research, it's also because the Renfield had a pretty big budget, which a lot of horror movies tend to not have that big of a budget. It was like what $60 million, and
Wow.
yeah, and for a well, it's more of a horror comedy, but regardless, though, I mean, movies like that usually don't have that big of a budget.
Right. Yeah. That was very true. Oh my God. Did you notice the one of the references they made in that? Remember how they say that Renfield's daughter is named Lillian?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was Bela's fourth wife's name. I remember you guys
Oh,
talking about you and Lynn talking about Lillian.
Yeah. I definitely love that, and I also even liked how like they had like those clips of the 1931 movie, but like they deep faked Nicolas Cage on
Yeah,
there, and they deep
yeah,
Nicholas Holt, which I know that Lynn said she wasn't a fan of that, but hey, it's one of those things like where you just can't please everybody.
right, exactly, yeah.
But yeah, and Nicolas Cage, I never thought that I ever needed to see that in my life, like to see him as the Count. And yeah, and from what I heard, that actually was one of like his dream roles, and so.
That's so nice. That's cool.
Oh, it is, yeah. And Last Voyage of the Demeter, it is such a coincidence how two Dracula movies by the
Uh,
same company
uh,
were released the exact same.
right?
Yeah, like how often does something like that
Oh
happen?
yeah.
I mean, that
Uh,
would be like saying, for argument's sakes, let's say I don't know, Universal decided they're going to release two King Kong movies the exact same
right,
year.
yeah. Or like if like the Adam West Batman and the Dark Knight came out the exact same year.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So when you saw Last Voyage of the Demeter, what were your thoughts on that?
I really enjoyed it. Like I really loved how like atmospheric it was. And how after just having like the funny Dracula and Nicolas Cage, I liked how we had like another scary Dracula, so
Uh
it like
huh.
kind of showed like the range of the character.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I even liked how it was a nod to Nosferatu, like about how the Count in that looked like a rat,
Mhm.
but in Last Voyage of the Demeter, he looked more like a bat,
Yeah.
which made sense.
Mhm.
And yeah, and even how at the very end, well, like how he was dressed in like that clothing, seeing that instantly made me feel like that I was watching like an old Universal monsters movie.
Me too. Me too. And it was like, and I loved how like they had like the cast of like very like colorful, interesting characters. Because that was because like you like the Universal monster movies, they always had that great supporting cast. So I
Hmm.
thought this had that too.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And I also loved its concept. That's because in a lot of Dracula movies, and even in the book, they like very briefly go over like the whole ship incident, and yeah, and to make a whole entire movie about that, it definitely was a very new concept, like what to do with a Dracula movie, and and to just have it in one location definitely helped to like keep the budget down.
And it makes it and it like it works for it because it like feels claustrophobic. And always loved that section of the different Dracula movies in the book. I always thought it was such a like an atmospheric section.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's a real shame that that bombed too. But
Mhm.
yeah, and why do you feel like that one bombed? I mean, I mean, besides when it was released.
Do you think with that one that like perhaps the title has something to do with it too?
It's
That
possible.
that like I mean most like Dracula fans know the meter, but I don't know if how many casual fans would recognize that name. And
Yeah.
even with Renfield, like I mean, I mean, a lot of people know Renfield, but definitely like more people know Dracula than Renfield.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And although it was a great idea on
Mm.
paper to have a Renfield movie,
Uh-huh.
but it's just most people in the general public know of Dracula and
Mhm.
they don't know of Renfield.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think you have a good point. And I mean, I don't remember when Barbie and Oppenheimer were released, but I can imagine that it probably had a hard time trying to compete with those two movies. I mean, considering that those two like were the biggest movies of last year.
And the movies, it's like the movies are so expensive now. You know, people don't take the chances that they used to.
Yeah, I mean, considering that so many movies bombed last year, like a lot of Marvel movies bombed, a lot of Disney movies bombed.
So it's not really it's not really Dracula. It's like it's everybody kind of is having a hard time.
Yeah, which sadly I've even heard people use the argument like that Dracula movies just aren't marketable anymore. While I get where they're coming from because Renfield, The Last Voyage of the Demeter bombed, but I don't feel like it's the character itself. You could argue that maybe it's just the movies.
And, I have to say, because sometimes I've played Dracula at a haunted house, and I do it I do it very classical. Like I do Bela Lugosi dialogue. I mix in a little bit of like a Christopher Lee when I do the biting and stuff, but like
Right.
it still gets them. It still gets them. Like it was so funny. I had last Halloween. It was this like 10-year-old punk, and he's like, I'm not scared of you, Dracula. So I did the original Broadway dialogue. From now on, you will carry out any suggestion that reaches you from my brain instantly, without question. When I tell you to do a thing, it shall be done. And I had my things in, and he went, I got him
That's
good.
amazing,
Like,
dude.
so like and that's the dialogue from the 1927 Broadway play, doing it Bela Lugosi style. So it still scares them.
Yeah, and about that, like, look, I get it. It was the 1920s, but I I really wish that there could have been somebody like who recorded it on some sort of video, like on like some sort of film, just to
Too.
see it. Yeah, like I would love to see like even pictures, even or just some sort of footage like of what that play would have been like.
I I hate to build up your hopes but crush your dreams. But they did do a radio recording, like it was like condensed, like about 15 minutes. But the Broadway cast did do a radio recording of Dracula, but that's lost too. like I know, because I wish and the only other thing I got that was the hypnosis dialogue. Bela Lugosi does say that when he guest starred on You Asked For It. But like, there's no like the scenes in the Broadway play, like they're similar to the movie, but they're different. Like there's this scene where Dracula hypnotizes the maid. There's this scene where Dracula disappears from the stage. Like it's all this stuff that I just like. I wish we could see Bela Lugosi in, dude. And there's like no way.
Yeah, I so wish I could have seen that. And, it kind of makes you wish that time travel actually was a thing, just to travel back in time just to go see that.
Yeah. Oh my. Can you imagine like and seeing him on Broadway when no one had seen anything like it? Like when that was like the scariest thing you had ever seen. Like how incredible would that be?
Yeah, now you mention it, I actually did see a Dracula play when I was in the seventh grade a really, really long time ago. And
How
yeah, and since that was such a long time ago, that was almost 20 years ago, my memory of it is pretty vague. But yeah, but yeah, I do remember liking that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, well, like if you have seen any play versions of it.
I haven't. I'm on the lookout for it. Because I really want to.
Right, yeah. And I mean, concerning it's public domain, I mean, anybody can make a play out of it. And yeah, and about plays, the Lugosi movie, a lot of people that I've met like have complained how it's not really faithful to the book, which look, I get it, but the reason why that they did it like was for economic reasons. It was more so based off of the play because it was a lot cheaper to do the play. And a lot of people tend to forget that with a movie, they have a budget and they also want to make sure that they're going to be feasible about it.
And I would like to add to that it's because it's not, even though it's a lot of it's from the play. The play doesn't have the opening Transylvanian scenes. They added that back from the book. It doesn't have the ship scene, so it's really a combination. And in the book, there's like long stretches where Dracula's not in it, and there's long stretches where Ranfield's not in it. So in some ways, I like. Well, the book is wonderful, and in certain aspects, I feel the movie like improved upon the book because by increasing the parts of Dracula and Renfield.
Right, yeah, exactly. And so therefore, if they would have went too long without Dracula, people would have complained about that. How
Yeah.
the movie called Dracula and there's not really a whole lot of Dracula in it, which reminds me of how nowadays a very similar thing happened with Godzilla 2014. How Godzilla wasn't really in the movie a whole lot, and it makes me feel old even to say that that movie is now 10 years old. Oh man, I was so hyped to see that in theaters, and yeah, me personally, I was disappointed, but that's now getting off topic. But yeah, and I mean, definitely, if they ever do a play version of Dracula in your area, I definitely think that you would be like the perfect person for it.
Oh, thank you so much. I would. Oh, I'd be honored to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, and I mean, considering that you're a big fan, and I mean, uh, I started doing plays about a year ago now, and I saw that they did do a Frankenstein play, and I was like, oh man, I wish I would have known about it at that time. Otherwise, I would have. And so that I was talking like to like the play director. I was like, hey, so I saw you did Frankenstein, and I said, hey, Dracula's in the public domain too. Have you ever thought about doing a Dracula play? And what he said was that they will tend to like switch genres around just so in that way that it gets the audience and the public a lot more interested in seeing the plays rather than the same thing over and over again. And he said, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see us doing Dracula. So yeah, and I really hope that he does. And when he does, you can guarantee that I'm going to audition like for Dracula because just like Nick Cage, that's a role that I have wanted to play like for a while now. So
It is so much fun because I get to play Dracula at the haunted house sometimes, and on my YouTube and TikTok channel. It's so much fun to play Dracula.
yeah, like I saw that short video of like somebody who had like a curtain down,
Uh,
and then like the curtain came down, and you were doing that, and then there was an audience who was applauding for that.
oh yes, yes. I think I know what you're talking. And then I got one time I got to do it on it was during a costume contest, and Spenguli was the judge, so I got to play Dracula. I was Dracula on. It was like short, but it was like I was Dracula on stage with Spenguli.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was so cool. They showed it on a show once. Like it was so cool.
That is so awesome. And then with that audience applauding, was that like an actual audience that you did that in front of, or what?
No, that was a real audience. Yeah,
Wow.
it was like that. Yeah, so when I was 'cause I think I'm pretty sure I know the clip that you're talking about, and yeah, that was a real audience, and it was like it was amazing. Like that's why I say like people still love the character because like I could see by like the reception that like when I do like Dracula stuff like that people love seeing that character like still alive in the classic Bela Lugosi form.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, heck, like it's always the Lugosi version that comes to mind whenever you hear the name, or like the Widow's Peak and the Boyce.
Yeah,
And I mean, heck, even if all these modern actors, even every actor after Lugosi, even if they try not to go that route, they end up bringing him to mind anyway.
exactly. You know, I was because when watching your interview with Lynn, I remember when you were talking about Christopher Lee, and that always like fascinated me how when you first meet him, how he speaks really fast. Whereas Bela speaks really slow, whereas Christopher Lee speaks really fast. So even though he's doing something totally different, it's like it's in response to Bela Lugosi.
Yep. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, and then the book Dracula finally became public domain around the time when Hammer got around to it, and yeah, and that was one of the legal loopholes like that when they did Dracula's daughter. That's why that a lot of the characters from the first movie don't even appear. But with Van Helsing, that's why that they called him Von Helsing instead of Van Helsing. Yeah, which
I didn't know that. Cool.
yeah, I didn't know that either until when I watched Dr. Wolfula's review of Dracula's daughter. I'm like, That's interesting considering it was done by Universal, like who did the first movie.
Right,
But
yeah.
yeah, it was some sort of legal dispute with like the Stoker, with like the Stoker state at that time. It was because that the book was not yet public domain, and yeah, and so that's why Mina, Jonathan Harker, all the other characters don't even show up. But they really wanted to have Van Helsing, but then they're like, shoot, we don't have the rights, but I guess we could just slightly change his name to Von Helsing.
And then, I mean,
To
to be
imagine,
fair, unless you're really on it, like and you like watch them back to back, you might not notice, you know, like
yeah, yeah, exactly, and which is probably why that a lot of people probably never even noticed that. And I mean,
uh,
honestly, I didn't even notice that up until when I saw that review of him. Like, well, now it makes sense
uh,
why all those other characters didn't appear. And yeah, I definitely do agree. Lugosi should have been in that movie. It just felt weird to have a Dracula movie without Lugosi in it. It's a
it's
real shame. Yeah, it's a real shame like that. While Lugosi did play other vampires, but he only played Dracula in movies twice.
it really is like it's like the universe. It's just like they missed the boat on that one because he was so great in that role.
Oh, definitely.
I even thought like you know something I did notice though about the other ones. I felt like they never like the way they wrote Dracula in the other films. He was never as strong as he was with Bela Lugosi.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh no, but that's what's it's like it's like they missed it by not casting him, but it's also hard to imagine him like doing the other ones because it's written so differently. What I always thought would be cool in House of Dracula if Bela Lugosi did like the dual role of Count Dracula and Doctor Heidelman.
Uh huh.
Yeah,
That would have been awesome. But yeah,
right.
when I first saw House of Frankenstein as a kid, I'll never forget how disappointed I was when I thought that it was John Carradine and not Bela Lugosi. I mean, it's not anything against John Carradine. I mean, John Carradine definitely was faithful, like to the book with the mustache.
It's like how do you beat Bela Lugosi? You know, it's that's like his trademark role, and I
Yeah,
think that's like part of why like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is so good because it's you have Bela Lugosi back.
yeah, definitely. And when I first saw Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein as a kid, I definitely noticed that you could definitely tell that he had aged at that time compared to when he did it in the 1931 movie. But I'm like, hey, it is still Lugosi back in that iconic role. And yeah, and there even was supposed to be like a Wolfman like versus Dracula movie, and that was supposed to have Bela back as Dracula, but that got canceled. I'm like, man,
Right, like in like in the original script of Dracula's Daughter, they had like a prologue where the Dracula's origin story.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's this like unused script that they had to they had to completely rewrite it to like the last minute, and they did a prologue where it's Count Dracula is like hosting a I think it was a little far out for the Hays Code, but
Right.
but Dracula was like hosting this party with all like the wealthy people, and they had like kidnapped all like these women from the village, and the wizard Talifer comes, and he goes up to the different people and said, You're acting like a pig. I'm gonna turn you into one," and he does it to and you're like a rat. I'll turn you into a rat, and then at the end he turns Dracula into a vampire.
Huh. I never knew that.
It's really interesting.
That is interesting. And from what I heard, James Whale actually was going to direct it.
Yeah, that's the script that like, he was involved with.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it would have been very interesting if they got James Whale. I mean, considering that he did such a great job with the Frankenstein movies. But yeah, I mean, that's a shame that that didn't happen. While we may not have gone the his version of Dracula's Daughter. I mean, at least that we got the Bride of Frankenstein, which is arguably the greatest Universal Monsters film. So yeah, so what are your thoughts on all that? Would you be on the same page about how that is the best of the Universal Monsters movies, or what?
Gee, you know, it's like I love them all for different reasons. I feel like Dracula's the scariest. I feel like Bride of Frankenstein's probably the most polished. You know, it has like the greatest. It has like the greatest score. It has like like a really strong writing, and I feel like and then I feel like the Wolfman's the most accessible. Like I think the Creature of Black Lagoon's probably the most fun. So it's like it's they're also great in their own way.
Oh yeah, definitely yeah. And I mean, all of them have to offer what they have to offer. All of them have like their strengths and weaknesses. Bride of Frankenstein, it's a very different movie from the original Frankenstein, but look, I get it. James Whale didn't want to just make the same movie over again. I
Right.
mean, it's often argued that Bride of Frankenstein is better than the original Frankenstein. I get where people are coming from. Me personally, I kind of like the spookier and more horror atmosphere of the original movie, but that's just my own opinion. But yeah, but that scene, like with like that blind man in Bride of Frankenstein, that makes me cry every single time.
It's amazing. And oh, you know what my favorite part is when Dr. Pretorius has the little people in the bottles.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's so cool. What a like it's like this little scene, but like they put so much into it.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I mean, considering that that was nearly 100 years ago, and the special effects are
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And all the actors who play like the king and the queen, like even though they're just like little parts and it's like mostly pantomime, like they all do so well. They're all so memorable.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And
Uh,
so yeah. So in your own opinion, which one do you like better, Bride of Frankenstein, or do you prefer the original movie?
it, that one I kind of like Bride of Frankenstein more.
Right.
Yeah, just because I love like all the like I love Dr. Pretorius.
Oh yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
like and the opening's cool too. How it's like Mary Shelley. Like I always think that's cool.
uh huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Speaking of Mary Shelley, they actually did make a biopic about Mary Shelley. It had Ellie. Oh, sorry, I got a phone call, but yeah. It actually had like Ellie Fanning in it, who's the sister of Dakota Fanning. I saw the movie like was on Tubi, and yeah, it was a pretty interesting movie. Like it really got you the perspective of why Mary Shelley created Frankenstein and how she got the ideas of it. But yeah, I mean, judging by your facial expressions, I can tell that you have not watched it.
No, I haven't seen it, but it sounds really cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't even know it even existed until like a year ago or so.
Cool. That sounds. I'll have to check that out. That sounds really good.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's a shame that not many people know about it. I mean, now that I think about it, they should do the same thing, but instead of Frankenstein with you know who. So yeah, so I guess with that in mind, if you were to cast a biopic, like if you were to cast a movie about like the making of like the Dracula book, who would you cast?
Hmm.
Who would you cast like as Bram and all that?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question.
It is, yeah.
I oh my god, I never thought about that before. I really don't. I don't even know. Like, I feel because like I would. You know what I would do? I would cast someone well known as Bram Stoker, and I would cast someone like unknown as Dracula. And
Yeah, like I think it would be really interesting if they got Gary Oldman, considering that
ooh, yeah, yeah. Okay, I take back my answer of I don't know it. I'm gonna steal yours because that would be perfect.
Okay. Right? Yeah, and I mean, considering that he already has history, like
Right?
with
Yeah,
like
he'd be perfect.
character.
Yeah, yeah. So I would do Gary Oldman. William Dafoe would be cool too.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah,
definitely, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, considering that he has history too
yeah. So I would
with.
do like one of the someone like that who has like a major association with it.
Oh yeah, definitely, and yeah, and when I asked Lynn Lugosi who she would cast as as Lugosi in a biopic, not surprised she gets asked that a lot. But who I think would make a great Lugosi, Charles Dance.
Ooh, yeah.
Charles Dance, like he has that face.
Yeah, yeah. He got yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
But yeah, as an older Lugosi, but as a younger one, who was the guy who played the son of the devil in Ghost Rider? I think it was
Ooh,
Wes. Wasn't his name Wes Bentley?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that too.
Well, that would be really interesting too, yeah. Oh, you know what I was just thinking? Because Bram Stoker worked for the actor Sir Henry Irving. Franklin Jella is Sir Henry Irving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Gary Oldman is Bram Stoker, and Franklin Jella is Sir Henry Irving.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, but yeah, Hollywood,
Oh
get
my
on
God!
it.
Okay, we're gonna do the triple threat because Dracula in the book is older. Cast William Dafoe as Dracula. So William Dafoe, we
Yeah,
got it. I think
which
we
and
got
well, I mean, yeah, in the book he's older, but yeah, like when he drinks blood, like he
it.
becomes younger. So,
We got
so
it.
yeah, definitely pretty good casting. So I guess with that in mind, they made a biopic about you. Who would you want to play you?
Oh my gosh, I that's even harder. um, um, gee, I don't even know. It's like someone who's like I want someone who's like really not like someone who's really nice who loves horror
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say
a talented actor who's like that.
I could see Toby Maguire, but I think Toby Maguire is a little bit too young. Sorry, not too old. Not too young. He's a little bit too old now.
Uh, yeah, but a young Toby Maguire, yeah, that would have been really cool.
Yeah, I
Uh,
could definitely see that. I mean, yeah, he's definitely too old to play you now, but I could see that. Trying to think of who else.
this would be
Maybe Timothy Chalamet.
ooh, that'd be interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be cool. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, considering that, I mean, yeah, he would have to fix up the hair considering that his hair is a lot more curly than yours. So,
Uh, well, they could fix that up. Oh, that'd be
oh,
interesting.
definitely, yeah, easily they
Uh,
can fix that. Oh yeah, definitely. So I guess out of all the Dracula movies you've seen, which one has been your least favorite?
it Sharkula. It was this. It was this. It was. It was this low budget.
Sharkula?
No offense to the people who made it. It was. It was like called something like that, and it was. I couldn't even finish it. It was. It was like yeah. It was like we're like. It was like a low budget movie where Dracula he like got turned into a shark, and I couldn't get past that. I thought my costume was nicer, and they just like I felt like it was like I wanted the character to be treated better than that.
So it's one of those like Sharknado like
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah.
Dracula turns into a shark.
Yeah.
I never thought
Yeah.
I would ever hear that. I'm having a hard
Yeah,
time
that's definitely my least favorite.
Wow. Okay then. I never thought Dracula would go into that realm, but
Dracula.
yeah, good on them, I guess. Yeah. There was one Dracula movie that came out like what, late '90s, early 2000s. It's regards one of the worst movies ever made. It's called Die Hard Dracula, I believe.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's on IMDb's bottom 250. Ooh, that's not a good sign, is
That's a
it?
tough cookie.
Yeah, and people often think, oh, Die Hard, like the movie with Bruce Willis.
uh,
Maybe that's why that they put that in the title just to catch people's attention because it was not long after Die Hard came out for
uh,
marketing purposes.
uh.
But yeah, it has like what, like I believe a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 on IMDb.
Oh.
So that might be worse than Sharkula. I mean, even just saying that name, Sharkula, like who could take that name?
It doesn't give you a lot of confidence, does it?
And where did you see Sharkula?
It was like on like one of the streaming services. I don't remember which one.
Huh. Sharkula. Interesting name.
If I'm wrong in the title, please forgive me. But it was like something like it was if it wasn't Sharkula, it was like something like that.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I guess they'll do what they gotta do to pay their bills, right? It's interesting. But yeah. Any other Dracula movies you've seen that you were not a fan of?
I mean, like I like most of them. Like most of them are pretty good. I really liked. It's hard for me to say like ones I really didn't like. Because usually I like something about all of them I see. I mean, some I like more than others, of course, but usually I like most of them. It has to be pretty bad for me to not like it.
Yeah, like Sharkula.
Like Sharkula, yeah, it's like something like that, yeah.
Considering that you couldn't even finish it.
I couldn't even fit because it was my costume was better, like, like and that like I come on, like I got the jacket at Goodwill, like, like I know they could do better than that.
Yeah, wow, yeah, I mean that's saying a lot. Like when your costume is even better than
Right, yeah.
one that was in a movie. Wow. Just wow. So yeah, so when you met Lugosi Jr., Sarah Karloff, and Ron Chaney, did you get their autographs or did you get their or did you get their pictures?
All right, so this was like a long time ago when I met them. I want to say like 2007.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. But I got a picture of the three of them when they first arrived. So all three standing together. I got it with a digital camera, and and then I got Bela Lugosi Jr.'s and Sarah Karloff's autograph, and I didn't get Ron Chaney's, but I actually just got his recently. My friend Catherine sent me a poster of the Universal Monsters from the Lon Chaney website, and it got lost in the mail. And then so Ron Chaney actually she called the company, and Ron Chaney called her back, and like resent it and signed it for me.
Awesome. Well,
yeah. So like it worked out that it got lost in the mail. Like it's like so. I actually now I have the complete set.
That's amazing. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, I also have Sarah Karloff's autograph. I also have Lugosi Jr.'s. I also have Lynn's. I also have Ron Chaney's.
Oh, cool. I don't have Lynn's, but this is what I do have. I have one of my followers on TikTok met her at a convention like in California, and he had one of my business cards. So I have a picture of Lynn holding my business card.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, that's something that you definitely should be very, very proud of.
I am. I really am.
So, do you have any other autographs?
See, actually, I do. I love going to horror conventions. One of my big ones, I have Jonathan Frid's autograph, Barnabas Collins from Dark Shadows.
Uh huh.
I have his. I just got I have met Heather Langenkamp, Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street twice, and one of my autographs it says to Bobby, and the other it says to Dracula.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I actually have a pretty nice like autograph collection of going to horror conventions and things. I have Angelique from Dark Shadows autograph.
That's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have quite the autograph collection too. Like, I have one from Tobin Bell, who is
Ooh,
Jigsaw. I have one from Nikolai Leon, who played Christopher Robin, Winnie the Pooh,
ooh.
Blood and Honey. I have also from Heather Langenkamp. Oh man, Craig Dowsett, who played Winnie the Pooh in Blood and Honey.
Ooh.
Uh, but yeah, definitely the biggest autograph that I have.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, considering that I got an autograph like from Jim Carrey.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
yeah. I mean, the way how I was able to get that one is that I have a friend of mine like named Vanessa, like who happened to have met Jim Carrey like at Museum of the Rockies, and then Vanessa put in a good word for me, and then yeah, and I was beyond happy.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, this is the other one. I have Rico Browning, the Creature of Black Lagoon's autograph.
Yeah, I also have his too, and the reason why that I got it is because I was wanting to get a hold of him for the longest time, but then he passed away a year ago, and then that was when I realized, oh no, all these people who I want to get a hold of in all these movies, they're not gonna be alive forever. And so then that's why that I got a hold of Sarah Karloff and the Lugosi's and all these other people, because that was my wake up call that shoot, they're not gonna be alive forever.
Yeah, yeah.
And then afterwards, that was when I was like, man, I feel bad that I never asked for Rico Browning for his autograph the entire time he was alive. So then I went onto a website and I saw that they actually had a signed Gilman mask from
Cool.
him. So yeah, so I purchased that. I'm like, hey, at least that will be like a compromise to me.
Right,
Even
yeah.
though it sucks I didn't get to meet him, but still, it's a
Yeah.
signed Gilman mask.
Yeah, I didn't get to meet because I was so close, and then the COVID pandemic occurred, so the convention was canceled. And but they did do a thing where it was online. You could send away for it, and that's where I got it.
Okay, well, at least they got that. I mean,
Yeah,
it sucks it couldn't be in person,
yeah,
but
yeah.
at
It was
least
it was like we were. It was like right. It was like the month after like really got bad.
yeah, COVID that year was rough.
It was a tough cookie. Yeah.
It was. I mean, it was tough. It was tough on the economic level, tough
Personal
on the
level.
emotional level. It just that was not a fun year.
Right. It's almost unbelievable that we went through it. It's like one of those historical events that people study about later.
Yeah, I mean, considering that future generations actually are going to be asking us about it.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, and yeah, so I mentioned the Winnie the Pooh horror movie. So there's this current trend now because of Winnie the Pooh that all these public domain properties are being turned into horror movies, like how Mickey Mouse is now getting two horror movies since that Steamboat Willie went public domain. What are
Uh-huh.
your thoughts on that like current trend? Is because like with horror movies, there's always that trend like that during the early 2000s. It was the remake trend. 80s, it was like the dawn of like the slasher genre and all that. So yeah, so what are your thoughts on like the current public domain trend?
I Well, I mean, it's definitely great stories to be had, and I mean, I feel like a lot of the children's stories, especially like the fairy tales and things, they always kind of had a horror element
Oh
anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I kind of feel like for a lot of them, I feel like making it playing up the horror would be like a natural. Like I think a scary Wizard of Oz would be amazing.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, considering that the Wizard of Oz book is in the public domain,
Right? Yeah.
but just not the famous movie like with Judy Garland.
Right. Yeah.
But an important thing to consider about that, the so what they did for the movie is that they changed the color like from gray to red.
Uh-huh.
But in the original book, they were not red, they were like silver or whatever. So with that in mind, yes, someone can make a Wizard of Oz horror movie, but they would just have to watch for those details.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, a Wizard of Oz horror movie. I mean, could you imagine what they would do to
My gosh. Yeah.
the lion and like the scarecrow?
Right. Yeah. And the Tin Man, like, and the Wicked Witch, and the flying monkeys, like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, considering even seeing what they did to Piglet in the Winnie the Pooh horror movie, I'm like, that's Piglet.
Oh my god! Imagine what they could do with the talking trees. Remember the talking trees?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think you're doing?
That
Like,
would be amazing.
right? Like,
But yeah, I mean, with the current trend, I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised that they haven't announced a Wizard of Oz horror movie. But yeah, when I first heard about the Winnie the Pooh horror movie, I thought it was just a fan film at first because I wasn't aware that Winnie the Pooh became public domain.
right? Yeah.
Then, then it went viral and with like the posters and trailers for it. I was like, how are they getting away with that?
Right.
Then
Yeah.
I did research, and then I saw that it's because Winnie the Pooh went to the public domain. I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And never in my lifetime did I ever think I ever would see a Winnie the Pooh horror movie.
Right. Me neither. Yeah. Because like of all the classic cartoons and like children's stories, like that's like the last one I would think of.
Yeah, because the character is so wholesome. And
right. Yeah.
So yeah, did you ever see any of the Winnie the Pooh horror films?
I have not seen it yet. What did you think of them?
I've seen both of them, and yeah, so I actually am friends with Nikolai Leon. Nikolai Leon actually played Christopher Robin in the first Winnie the Pooh horror movie, and I have his autograph there.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so the first one, the script needed some work. It's just there were some pointless characters in it, and there was like some pointless things in like the story. But yeah, the sequel is a billion times better.
Cool.
So but yeah, and Tigger was not in the first movie because Tigger was not yet in the public domain. But then when they made the second movie, Tigger became public domain. And yeah, Tigger, oh my gosh, like he says bitch a lot, which is a nod to like the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Oh
so yeah, and so and I actually know the actor like who played Tigger in the sequel, and I also had him on this podcast too, and I've had Craig Dowsett on like who played Winnie the Pooh in the first movie, and now I hear that they're making a Little Mermaid horror movie.
Oh no way!
Looking what they did to Ariel. I'm like, that's Ariel with like these piranha like.
Wasn't like the original like book like kind of like more in a scary vein too?
Yeah, like in the book, instead of losing her voice, Ursula cuts off her tongue.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so yeah, I'm like, well, it's more faithful to the book,
right? Yeah.
And Mickey Mouse 2 and Peter Pan, Bambi.
Peter Pan 2?
Yeah, Peter Pan, yeah.
Oh, I always love Peter Pan. Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I believe the Peter Pan one comes out this year, and they even announced a Bambi one, and Bambi has like full on like say dinosaur spikes going down its back, and it looks more like a zombie. And they even announced like they're gonna do a movie called like the Pooh-niverse. like which unites Winnie the Pooh, Bambi, Peter
Uh,
Pan,
uh,
all of them into the same movie
uh.
where they all fight
Oh
each other.
my god, that's so cool.
And they even announced like a Mickey Mouse versus Winnie the Pooh horror movie. And so
I,
yeah,
that's
I
so
mean,
cool.
what a time. I mean,
Right? Yeah.
what a time to be alive. I mean,
Right, yeah.
it's a shame that it will take too long for Sonic the Hedgehog to go public domain because I would love to see a Sonic horror film.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, considering like just how fast Sonic runs, it will be a lot harder to like get away and all that.
Right. I wonder if, well, maybe if they become really popular, maybe they'll even like be willing to pay for the rights.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, they would have to pay enough money for Sega
Uh,
for Sega to be okay with that. I mean, even imagine a Nintendo, like imagine if the Nintendo agreed to a Mario horror
right.
movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if they get that money for it, you know, for them to get the rights to a Sonic horror movie, because yeah, Sonic came out in 1991, and it's 95 years after publication. By then, we're gonna be dead. So yeah, that's way too long.
Dracula can still see it, and I get that's what counts.
Yeah, 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 definitely, yeah. Well, anyways, I think that about does her. So, is there anything that you were wanting to plug in?
uh, well, please come to my YouTube and TikTok channel, Lugosi Theater. I also am working and doing Instagram more, and then yeah, that's about it. Oh, I would like to. Can I please tell my favorite Bela Lugosi story?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, this is when he was doing the play Dracula, and him and Elaine Stritch they went out for drinks afterwards. And Bela he had 17 glasses of scotch. And the waiter he was ordering another one. And the waiter said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Lugosi, you had 17 glasses of scotch. We can't serve you any more alcohol." So Bela got up and said, "Come, we take our drinking elsewhere." And he did the trick where he pulled the tablecloth off and all the dishes stayed.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
That is
And
so awesome.
I saw the interview where she tells that story, and the interviewer asked, "Did it work?" And she said everything he did worked.
That's amazing. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. But yeah, everybody, please be sure to follow him on Facebook as Bobby Lugosi, and be sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel. It's called Lugosi Theater, right?
Yes.
But yeah, be sure to check him out on YouTube and his Instagram, and again, you all have a fantastic day.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right, you all have a fantastic day.
You too. Thank you.
Of course.